Hey Sawyer, how's it going?
Hello. I'm good. How are you guys? My name is Sawyer Whitted. My main creative practice is music. With music, there's so many different avenues you can take, and I've dabbled in composition, I've dabbled in performance, I've dabbled in music history, music theory, all this other stuff. And while I enjoy every single atmosphere, I've realized that the one that I enjoy actually the most is performance. So I love to play classical music on the piano. Give me a good Beethoven sonata and I will go at that thing and have the time of my life.
Maybe give us a sense of where you are in kind of a season of life, what transitions you might be in, internal and external, however you want to answer that, and how that's kind of eventually kind of trickled into art.
I just finished my first year of my master's program. This last year, I have grown so much. I graduated a year and a half ago from undergrad from Cairn University in Langhorne, PA. I had my senior recital. That was the moment for me. At the end of that night, I decided that I wanted to pursue my master's. I had been thinking about it, but was like, I don't feel like I'm good enough for that. I just felt exhausted. It was a really tough year. And I remember there was so much that I was throwing into that music, a lot of that emotion, a lot of the culmination of my time there at Cairn. I had a lot of really good experiences. I had a lot of really painful experiences. I remember that night just being able to communicate through the music in a way that my words could not. I felt just so incredibly encouraged. Some professor said some very encouraging things to me about it. I remember the next day I took it easy. I slept until like 11 o'clock. I skipped my morning class. It was wonderful.
Nice.
And I remember that whole day I was like, yeah, I'm pursuing my master's. My college professor actually said to me, when I told him, I was like, okay, so I'm trying to pick out my program degree. And he goes, you're not thinking performance, right? And I was like, no, not at all. He was like, yeah, you should probably do like piano pedagogy. You can focus more on the teaching side of it rather than the performance side. I didn't even give it another thought. I was like, there's no way. My professor, who knows way more than me, basically just told me I'm not ready for performance. So I auditioned for piano pedagogy, got into the program, was super excited. I was talking with my professor after my audition, the guy that I was planning to study with. He's like, have you considered a performance degree? And I was like, well, yeah, but I'm not good enough for that. I didn't even ask him. I just kind of said it because that's what I believed. I said, I'm not good enough for that. And he was like, he gave me this face and he was like, well, I wouldn't say that. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, I just heard you audition. He's like, sorry. He's like, there's a couple things with technique that, yeah, I think you and I should brush up on this summer before you attend in the fall. He's like, but if you want to do performance, you could do performance. Go for it. He's like, I'd be happy to help you work to that. So a lot of hours of just hard work this past year have really paid off. I feel like I'm not even close to the same pianist as I was in May 2019 as I am now. I'm starting to feel kind of like the sky's the limit, and that's never been something that I've allowed myself to feel.
Are you doing any songwriting? Either you said composition, is it all kind of classical?
So I've written actually a lot of songs, but due to something that I think every single creative can relate to called insecurity, not a lot of my music, my personal music that I've written has been shared. Just in recent months have I started to actually share it with some close friends. But my brother has this podcast that he's doing right now, and he asked me to write the theme music for it.
Nice.
So I've started to do this like epic, like full orchestra, 30-second theme song that I've just started to like recorded voice memos, like singing different parts that I have ideas for, but haven't put any of that together yet. But that kind of stuff, like, I really love.
Okay, well, this question is tea or coffee?
I cannot survive without coffee. So coffee's kind of like a necessity to me, and tea's like a pleasure, an additional pleasure.
That's good.
What are your main inspirations?
Community, the fact that I can bless people and help enrich their lives with my music, with my art. That's a big one for me. I think another inspiration, I'm like very much into psychology, believe it or not. I'm a huge fan of the Enneagram. Do you guys know your numbers?
I do. Hudson knows, I think, but he refuses to accept it.
That's been something that's really helpful for me. And even just realizing like I like personality tests, like the Myers-Briggs and stuff. But the fact that the Enneagram is not a personality test, that's not prescriptive. It's not this is you and you are nothing else, but rather it's descriptive, and it helps say, hey, this might be the reasons why you react to things this way, which I love. I think that's super helpful. As a two, and not acknowledging my own needs and my own identity, it's been incredibly freeing to realize, like, okay, I'm a person with thoughts and feelings. I need to express them. And piano is something that really helps me do that. Music in general, but piano specifically is something that really helps me do that. Because piano is something that is relaxing to me, it feeds my soul. It makes me realize my purpose. Reading about psychology and just kind of how we interact with each other and humans, other fellow humans in our lives and friends and family, is really inspiring to me, because I can turn to piano and I can care for myself really well. And through piano, I can care for others as well. Through music, I can love on other people. So for me, it's like music is like the perfect way for me to be able to like both acknowledge my own needs and care for myself, and also acknowledge the needs of others and care for them. I changed my major 5 times in undergrad because I was just so unsure about music. Because I wanted to make a living. I didn't want to go into the arts. I want to have a family. I want to have kids. You know, I want to be able to provide for them. I was like, I can't do that on a music salary, which is so false. But that's what society told me. And so having a lot of people in my life just be like, Sawyer, you're miserable not doing music. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't know what I'm doing, you know? And just having that affirmation from my family and like my friends is just so helpful.
I love what you said about that. It's like for you and for it encourages yourself and also other people. It can be both of those things at the same exact time. Mm-hmm. So fulfilling to yourself and giving yourself joy in life, and also the same for other people.
There was actually something in that Andrew Peterson said about that really stuck with me in like the last couple pages of his book about artists need resonators, and which was so cool.
As you pour out your art, it comes back to you like through the people that you love and care about, and even just random strangers. Like you still get feedback, and it's this whole process of growing and changing, and it's just really beautiful. There's really nothing like it.
Do you have a favorite movie and book, or movie or book?
Can I give one of each?
Yeah.
My favorite movie is Inception. If a movie, this is going to be the most pretentious thing you've ever heard me say. If a movie is not intellectually stimulating, I will like fall asleep. And I'll be real. Like there are times where like just a good Disney movie is like what you need. As far as the book goes, back to the Enneagram, probably my favorite book right now is The Road Back to You, followed very closely by Adorning the Dark.
Do you have a favorite composer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Frédéric Chopin, hands down. There is nobody that I know that writes more captivating melodies than Frédéric Chopin, followed very closely by Franz Liszt. For real, like most composers from the 19th century, the Romantic era composers, they've got my heart. We say the word discipline and we think such a negative thing, right? Parents discipline their children. It's not like a pleasant term when we think about it. I think there's a caveat. I think there's a big need to like redeem that word. I think it's important to also like, you kind of incentivize yourself. You know, I go, okay, I'm going to practice for 2 hours. And when I do, after I'm done, I'm going to go to Starbucks and get a coffee. You know, that's my reward. You know, if I get a good 2 hours of practice in, I do that all the time. Or, you know, there's this rendition of A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman that John Schmidt plays that you really, really love, but you're not allowed to practice that until you do your Beethoven sonata. You know what I mean? Like, you can't play through that until you do this. You know, like kind of incentivizing is really helpful. I will get discouraged and not want to sit at the piano because I tell myself, I go, I can't do this. I cannot play Prokofiev on the piano. He is way too hard. I can't memorize him. His harmonic structure is so 20th century. Honestly, there have been very few things that have kept me going. Part of it is my faith. Another huge part is my community and just telling some of my really close friends, like, hey, you know, this is something that means so much to me. Like, I need accountability. Can you text me and make sure that I'm practicing? And I used to feel like practicing 2 hours a day was like death. I was like, how could I possibly get that in? And like, it's not hard for me to get that in anymore. So part of that is just with like a discipline. I think part of our mentality as artists is it's this personal thing that makes me feel good, that I love doing, that helps me communicate. So I just kind of do it at my will, which like there's something really good about that, I think. But I think there's so much beauty found in discipline too. My younger brother, he draws, sketching, so good. It kind of felt like it came out of nowhere too. One day he was just like, "Hey, look at this," and I'm like, "What the heck?" He said, you know, something that he does. He's been inspired by a lot of YouTubers he watches. He will do a sketch every morning. Like he'll sketch something. It doesn't matter. He just kind of forces himself to, and that inspired me so much. And that's something that I try to do. I try to sit at a piano for at least half an hour every day. Just disciplining yourself to do something every day, even though it can feel like death in the beginning. And I've heard people even say, like, it takes the joy out of art for me. Like, and I get that. But I don't know. I guess I would just encourage people, like, the more you start to discipline yourself to do things, your mind and your body start to expect those things. And it becomes more habitual. Disciplining myself to like practice, even when I don't want to, is really helpful and has made me a better musician. I can communicate better now through the piano because of the discipline that I've forced myself to adapt to.
Where are you hoping to be in next year, however long you want to think of that?
By this time next year, I'm hoping to know whether or not I'm pursuing my doctorate, if I get accepted or not, you know. If not, that's going to kind of change the career path. So one of the things I'm really doing is I'm learning some pretty difficult pieces. You know, my trajectory over the past few years has just been, you know, I learn a really hard piece, and then I complete it, and then I choose a harder piece, and I choose a harder piece, and so I'm just doing that. My studio, I have a studio, it's called Whitted Piano Studios. I have 14 students currently, so I would love to see that grow. It's been such a joy to teach. I teach piano lessons, I teach voice lessons, both classical and pop and jazz, and I teach music theory as well. It's been really cool because a lot of it has just been, you know, I've been teaching people who live near me. But with this pandemic, it has opened up avenues of virtual teaching that I didn't know would be so effective and amazing. I have continued to teach all my 14 students since the middle of March, and they have improved by leaps and bounds in the last 2.5 months. It's just been so good how this pandemic has not stunted the ability to continue to create and to learn and to become better musicians. And ultimately artists. And so that's a huge thing that I do with my students. I really talk a vision. If they lose vision, they're going to lose the desire to practice, the desire to become a better musician. You know, if there's no why to what you're doing and no vision casting, I'm failing as a teacher if I don't do that. I really want to work with just anyone who wants to learn and wants to learn more about music.
How did you overcome the insecurities in order to share with your friends, or how do you kind of deal with those insecurities as an artist? Wanting to get your work out there, but also being, you know, still having them.
The first thing is that realizing that if they're my friends, they're going to be loving, and they love me and care about me. So they're going to hear my music and they're probably going to say nice things about it. But if they're my real friends, they'll also help me critique it. Critiquing and refining your craft is like part of what makes you an artist and what makes you a good artist. It's like a key ingredient. A lot of these insecurities and fear of rejection is just in my head. It's not reality. Doesn't necessarily make it easier to overcome, but it's definitely something in the process of that. I think the second thing is that music, and really any form of art, is something that is so revealing. You cannot share art with someone without sharing part of the essence of who you are. That kind of vulnerability that comes with sharing any kind of art is just a scary thing for us to do, especially as Americans. If I even may go as far to say, especially as an American male. You know, we're kind of shown in society that like it's not as okay to be a guy and to be as emotional. That stunts our humanity so much. The essence of being human is having feelings. There's a depth that music and art can reach that words cannot.
And I think another, just an even further with that, like the process of art is like somebody makes it, but then it's also on the receiving end. So like it's completed by the act of sharing it. It opens up like a channel in a way that other people can latch onto.
Vulnerability and creativity are contagious. Like when you share your vulnerabilities and as well as sharing your creativity, it inspires other people to be creative, or it encourages them to be like, oh wow, he was being really vulnerable. I also feel like I have something to share, you know? And that in turn creates the community, and it creates a more creative community.
Because it helps you take your eyes off of yourself too, and realize that you can use your art to bless and help other people.
Yeah.
That is like the number one reason why I love to perform, because it helps people get out of wherever they are or having a hard day or whatever, and for 10 minutes they can be blessed by some music and just listen and be touched.